Good evening. My name is John O'Malley, and I am the president of Worldwide New Testament Baptist Missions in Kings Mountain, North Carolina. On March the 12th, our founder, Dr. Bill Wingard, went to be with the Lord. He was the pastor of Calvary Baptist Church in New Bern, North Carolina. I know that usually at this hour we are airing our online missions conference. Tonight, however, I have something special for you. A few years ago, Dr. Wingard sat down with Dr. Danny Whetstone, who was then president of the mission, and he is vice chairman of the board now. And Brother Whetstone and Brother Wingard sat down for an interview to tell the story of Worldwide New Testament Baptist Missions founding. Over 50 years ago, our missions agency was formally founded, but the story really starts in 1964 and a little bit before. I'll not get ahead of the story, but I'll tell you this, you don't want to miss a moment of this. Dr. Wingard will be buried this week, tomorrow, as this airs, and we will sorely miss him as we already do. But I can tell you this, that God used this man like God can use you. The world is yet to see, is what the evangelist told D.L. Moody. He said, the world is yet to see what God can do with someone who has fully submitted to him. I urge you as you watch this, that you'll ask yourself the question, what can I do for the Lord Jesus Christ that will matter when I'm gone? Watch this interview with me.
Pastor Wingard, we've arrived to the place that we need to get a history of what took place so many years ago when Worldwide was born. And I know it didn't just begin in 1971. It goes back a great deal further. If you will, just take some time and go back with us what was going on in Calvary and in your own life in those early days.
It was back in the year 1964, Brother Danny. I had come to Calvary in 62. And we had some hard times at church, and we went through some tremendous battles. And just as we were starting to come out of some of those battles, I went into Mr. Wilbur Hughes' barbershop one day and picked up the February 29th edition of the Saturday Evening Post. And just thumbing through it like you always do in a barbershop, and I came on this article about Micronesia. And I cannot put it in words. I've never had anything like that in my life before nor since then. But I was just drawn to it, and I began to read, and my heart began to be blessed and to be challenged. And I was so fascinated with it that when I left the barbershop, I went down to a little motel and bought a copy of that magazine and took it home, began to read, and as I began to read, God began to burden. For the next 7 years, I tried to gather any information I could get on Micronesia. So I read and I wept and I talked to everybody that I could talk to about it. And the burden just would never go away. So one time I volunteered to go as a missionary myself. But there again, the Lord shut that door. But he never would relieve us of the burden for that work. When I read the article back in 64. I read about some radio stations out there. And so I wrote those radio stations and asked them if there was an opportunity to get on the air, and I never got a reply from them. So this went on literally for 7 years, and the burden never left. So I decided to write again to those radio stations, and I did. And I received a reply from the radio station in Pohnpei. And so I responded back to them and asked them if I could get on the air with our program out there. And to shorten the story, they said yes, that I could. From the very first broadcast, I received a letter from an American school teacher who was contract teaching out there. His name was Charles Massey. And he sent, though it was not requested, he sent $20 in that envelope and said that we need this kind of preaching out here. Well, I was excited about that.
Sure.
And so we communicating back and forth, and in our communication, he said, there's a preacher out here, there's a young man out here that is saved, and he's trying to start a church, but he's having a lot of opposition. Maybe you could encourage him. And this was Brother Samuel Wellers, our brother who has just gone home to be with the Lord. So we started communicating back and forth. Well, one Monday, I went in the post office, and I had 2 letters in the post office from Pohnpei. One was from Brother Wellers, and one was from Brother Massey. And they said, in essence, something's going on out here. We don't know what it is, but we don't think it's right. And I took those letters like Hezekiah did when he went in, when he was challenged by Sennacherib. And we were building that building that we're in now, the auditorium. And I took them in that unfinished building, got on my knees and spread them out. And I told the Lord, I said, Lord, you know, I've never been anywhere like this, and I don't have any money to do this. But if you want me to go, I'll borrow the money if I have to go. That was on Monday. Oh, I told the folks about it on Wednesday night at church. Well, Thursday morning, a man who had just gotten saved, he came walking in where we were working on that building and said he wanted to see the preacher. I asked him what he wanted, and he reached out his hand and said, here, go make that trip. Well, it was a roll of bills, 50s and 100s. And he had put $1,000 into my hand. And honestly, it about scared me. It scared me, because 7 years I've been praying, 7 years I've been planning, 7 years and now it's going to happen. I mean, here is the money to go. So we were able to unload those New Testaments. I met Brother Wellers, praise God for that. He had gotten saved on Guam. An American serviceman had led him to Christ. First of all, though, when he went back to the island, so far as he knew, he was the only saved person on the island. And he started winning people to Christ. And among those that he led to Christ was Esther, his precious wife. And you remember, she was from a kingly line.
Right.
She and William were from a royal line. Led her to the Lord, and they started winning souls. They built a house with the intention of using it also to meet with the church. But no adults would come. They had really ostracized them. But a number of children were coming to Sunday school. I'll tell you, it was some sight to walk up there when Sunday school was going on and have flip-flops for 100 children outside the door.
Yeah.
How they ever found their flip-flops out there, I don't know, but anyway. Well, Brother Wellers, he said, let's have a revival meeting. And so he said, let's see if we can get the Omni Elementary School. So he went and talked to whoever the officials were, and they said, yes, we could use it. And said, well, let's go up to the radio station and put it on the air. So we went up to the radio station, they agreed to announce it. And we started that meeting, and it was a flop. I don't know why he did not want to interpret for me, but he didn't. And he assigned me the first night some interpreter. And I'm telling you, it just did not go over at all. It was sad. People were coming in, what have you. So he said to me, I know this sounds strange, he said to me, just go in and preach like you do on the Calvary Hour. Just preach like that. And so I did. And I saw one of the 2 greatest manifestations of God's power I've ever seen in my life. But Danny, the people flocked in. The power of God was there. Multitudes of people got saved. The people who became the backbone of that church got saved in that meeting. And that taboo of going to his church, or whatever you want to call it, that was broken. And they started coming to this church. The church was organized, formed. So they just kept going. They kept serving the Lord and winning souls and so forth. And the church began to really grow. Well, then, you know, you can fast forward it a long ways, but let's back up again. When we started out there in Micronesia, as we said, there was no mission board. And so what we did was, because by now I have talked to everybody I can talk to about Micronesia and ask them to pray and what have you. And then, so there were people like Brother Ebron and Brother Bell and Brother Bob Winstead and Brother Jack Green and Brother Roy Jernigan and just a whole lot of fellows that we were close to. And so we said, well, what are we going to do, you know? And so we didn't set out to, quote, start a mission board. We're just trying to find out how we can get the gospel out there. And so that's how we got started. And so we started out with the name New Testament Baptist Mission. And somebody wrote us from out in the Midwest and said, hey, we got that name first. And so well, we said we was add worldwide to it. That's how we end up with the longest name in missions. We added worldwide to it. And then, ironically, the first missionary that came to us was Joseph Roberts. And you knew him well.
From
you
India.
visited him over there. He was to India. But then missionaries primarily from Micronesia.
Well, of course, now since Joseph Robert Garrick-McCullough and Brother Dennis and Brother Jerry and all those.
Chuck Lockwood was one of the early missionaries out there.
So many of them we can remember. Now 107 families serving in 37 countries.
I can't hardly grasp it.
Could you have hardly seen that in those days?
No, it was not our goal. That was not our goal. Our goal was we had a burden and we were just trying to get the gospel out there.
Thank you for watching this video with me tonight. The Online Missions Conference will resume next Thursday night, and we will interview Brother Jeremy Kenny. But tonight I want to leave you with this thought. A man lived his life for the glory of God, and great things were done. What are you doing with your life, and what does God want to get the glory out of with your life? Until next week, may God bless you.